Sup world. So before the patch came out, rogues were basically using the Barber Heart for most of the builds that were there, especially on our max roll guys. Val was pretty much considered best in slot for most of our setups. Mainly reason is the fact that the Barber was kind of bugged. Well, not kind of, definitely was bugged. It had a lot of things that just didn't work. Lucky hit stuff didn't work. On hit stuff didn't work. It was hard to proc vulnerable. So it was pretty difficult to really get a good use out of Barber when playing most of the rogue builds. But now that they fixed that in this new patch, basically everything works, such as Umbrus, which is a very big deal for bow rogues. Vulnerable is now easy to apply, Crocker stuff, like all that actually works now. So because of that, this is going to put this heart into basically every single rogue build on max roll as best in slot, because there's now no downsides and it's just all upsides from here. But I didn't make this video to talk about the strengths of the Barber itself. I actually made this video to kind of talk more about something that people may not have realized that can buff our damage considerably further than just equipping the Barber. So I'm going to kind of show you the secret sauce on how to do that for basically most of your rogue builds, especially if you're doing builds that have dual imbuement skills attached to them. So let's talk about the secret sauce. What's going to make the Barber like even better, like, for rogues, what we're not thinking about like on the surface and things. And the biggest deal when it comes to rogue and the Barbers is that a lot of times most of our builds use at least one imbuement. A lot of them actually use two imbuements, and one of the biggest ones is actually shadow imbuement, right? Shadow imbuement was just that imbuement that just allowed us to clear. It was great AoE clear to really help us mow down packs. But the Barber actually does that, and does that well, and actually does that significantly better than what Shadow does. So because of that, if you're using a dual imbuement build, like again most of the max roll builds are, especially in my bow builds, you actually don't want to start with Shadow now, because why? We already have the explosion now. You actually want to start with cold imbuement, and this is the secret sauce that I was talking about, because starting with cold imbuement gives us many different multipliers. We have the mixed cold imbuement, which is 20% while they're chilled. It's 40% when they're frozen, and of course now they can freeze now with the Barber, right? Then you got the frigid finesse, same as exact ordeal. You get 15% more multiplicative damage, 30% if they're frozen. So these two are massive multipliers, alongside with the control glyph. The secondary also gives you more multiplicative damage options, and I'm not done yet. Let's go to here where the frostbitten, which I have it on my boots right now, but max roll you'll kind of see on different parts of the gear. But this is another 25% multiplicative damage source. So when you start with cold imbuement rather than shadow imbuement, you now are able to just completely decimate mobs before, and like you don't even really get much of that delay anymore, because your damage output at the start is significantly higher when you start with cold imbuement as opposed to, let's say, starting with shadow imbuement, that you really don't even feel much of the delay anymore. If you were watching earlier parts of this video, you saw me running with this particular spec and just mowing down things with cold imbuement. So this here is actually really the biggest change that is happening. In reality, if you're not running cold imbuement first, you're losing a ton of damage with that, because of course the Barber does all the AoE and stuff like that. So we no longer need Shadow to do that. Now, does this mean that like you want to give up Shadow? You can if you want. You can really not do Shadow at all if you don't want to. You can just do a single imbue. I wouldn't recommend doing that. A lot of damage really does come from your imbuement, so you do kind of want to do it in imbuement for most builds. However, you can run poison instead if that is your choice, because again, don't need the AoE from Shadow. However, I do like keeping Shadow imbuement on my bar, because the mixed Shadow imbuement is a 12% multiplicative damage option there. So it's like even if you don't really care about the explosions as much anymore, you still get extra damage, multiplicative damage here. And of course, if you're struggling with energy, consuming shadows is always very good. It's actually better now with the Barber, because you get all the energy back when everything explodes. So Shadow still has a place. Not saying replace Shadow by any means. I'm just saying that if you just want to see your damage spike and you just want to just absolutely murder everything in the room, start with cold imbuement. This is the absolute biggest undercover buff this patch for rogues in general. And this can apply for any builds: rapid fire, flurry, penetrating shot, barrage, twisting blades, doesn't matter. Any of them that actually uses imbuement, start with cold and you will literally see just a big difference in your clearing power. So what are you waiting for? Go slaughter everything in your path, and I'll see you in the next video.